Alright guys, so today is Sunday, June 18th, 2023. It is a Sunday and it's Father's Day. Beautiful day here where I'm at. And so I thought I'd take the 40mm Lunt out in between things that I'm working on and take a look at the sun. So much detail today. It's excellent. But I got an issue, and I just uploaded yesterday the part 2 of a glowing report on this scope. So I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm going to show you what the issue is here today. And here's another view. I tipped it a bit, so it's all the way closed. You can see the gap there. This should be closed. The talon should be down, parallel, flat onto the cell on the bottom here that's attached to the tube. And here you see that the thumb wheel now is holding this up. But again, look at this. It's not closing. So if we take a look here, you've got these 4 bolts, 2 on the top cell, 2 on the bottom, that have this brass plate, and that acts as the hinge point. And so what should happen is, as you open and close this thumb wheel, it's pivoting back here. It should be closing down, and for some reason it isn't. Well, now this is interesting. As I was looking at this, I noticed there was a gap between these 2 bottom ones, and they're loose. You can see these 2 bottom ones I can turn with my hand. So I'm going to tighten those down. Okay, now you're going to need a 1.5mm Allen wrench. My preference is Bondus. They make excellent Allen wrenches. Alright, so I'm going to check the top ones first. Did turn a little bit. Yeah, I did get a little bit of a turn on them. Now let's look at these bottom ones. I don't know if this has anything. Oh, that's pretty loose. I don't think that has anything to do with it, but we'll see here. Now here's a close-up of the thumb wheel, and you see on either side those little silver pieces that are they're actually bolts that go from the bottom of the cell here, from below up, and I believe those allow the top portion here not to rotate around. It keeps it lined up. And here you see those 2, the thumb wheel, and then on either side those bolts that go in from the bottom up that I just showed in the previous clip. Well, boys and girls, my curiosity got the best of me, and I looked at this and I thought, there's no way in hell this is a very simplistic system. It's not complicated. So when I looked at it, I noticed that those screws that I talked about, those small ones back here, I loosened them up, which allowed this now to swing further, but it wouldn't come back. I thought, there's something with the center wheel. So I took those 2 screws out. And if you ever do this, make damn sure you do it over a table. You don't want to drop this stuff. You can't even, I mean, they're very small. I'll do a close-up here later. But so, and I found the issue. Very simple. Excuse me. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to call anyways tomorrow and talk to Faye and see if there's something that they use to prevent what happened from happening again. Alright guys, let's go over these. The 2 screws you see here with the springs, those are the ones that are on the back side that I showed previous in the video clip, that come from the back side and that go into here to prevent the unit from rotating. It keeps it, you know, steady on here. And then you'll see I only had to take out 2, not all 4. You see those 2 little small screws? Those are the ones that are on what I would call their hinge assembly. So I just took off 2 of those. Then you see the thumb wheel. Then you see the culprit, this little small stud here. So what actually happened is it backed out. It's screwed in here, and then this is on it. And so you have it to where you have that little, like, I think like a silicone, whatever. That's what bears against this front part. And so the springs then pull it back in. But what happened is when that small stud, it backed out this way towards the front. So when it did that, it kept it out. So it's a very simple fix, and I thought I'd show you how to do it. And like I said, I'm going to ask Faye if there's something we can put on there. You want to be careful because you just don't want to use anything that may outgas. So I don't know what they do, if they just crank it down. There is no, I don't know how they hold it in there, to be honest with you. There's no point to put a tool on to tighten it. So we'll see, but I'm going to go ahead and put this together today. Again, with working with these very small screws, make sure you're on a counter, a table, and put them in a container. I love these little containers for that. Close it up until you're ready to use it. I thought since I had it apart, we'd take a look at the components here. And then this has a filter directly behind this cell. So if you remember in my review, part 2, how Lunt, which I read right off the page, uses multiple UV filters and IR filters, so that they actually said if you were to put a daytime diagonal on here and not the diagonal that Lunt provides with these scopes, you would actually get less UV and IR than your eyes do in the sun during the day. Now, as you can see, I took this cell off of here, or this portion, adapter, whatever you want to call it, that screws onto here, because this is what's going to attach to this, and then this whole assembly screws on here. So what I did is, you can see where there's some kind of, I don't know if that's supposed to glue it in, but on the back side there is something there, and then there's where that stud screws in. And here's a close-up of what I'm talking about. There's some kind of material there that I don't know if they screwed this in and then used something they put on there in an effort to hold this on. But I can see I'm going to be taking this apart again tomorrow once I talk to Faye, because I don't see how this won't unscrew again. I think they'll either provide me with something, because I'll just do this myself, or give me a means of what I need to do here to prevent this from happening again. So here you see that I've got the filter wheel screwed on. You want to make sure that this O-ring in here is facing towards this front assembly. And then you can see where they have the spot face in here that stud would fit into. Right, guys, so the first thing I did was attach this portion to the hinge. And then again, this will all screw onto here. Now you can see that now it's closed, because that stud is no longer forward and preventing it from closing. And the 2 screws that go in here with the springs would force this closed. Next, let's put the screws in with the springs. We'll drop those in just like that. And always make sure you get them both started first. Make sure they start nice and easy. And being that they've got springs, I'm not sure how tight. You don't want to, since that's closed, let me see here. Yeah, I'm going to leave it like that. In fact, I'm going to loosen those up. I'm going to loosen them up a little bit because the springs will keep them from, should keep them from loosening. So there we are. So what we need to make sure of is we prevent that stud from moving, which, like I said, I will check with Faye. Next, I'm going to take my blower and make sure that both surfaces are dust free. And then I will assemble the two. There you are, guys. Let's take it out and give it a try. Alright, boys and girls, we're hitting on all cylinders. It's working perfect. So the issue is that stud. So I've got to find out what I need to do to prevent that from happening again and why it happened. Don't know if anybody else has ever had that issue, but I sure don't want to send it back to them when I can take care of it. The thing I can think of is possibly digging out whatever's in the back of that and maybe using whatever product they may send me or whatever to adhere that so that it doesn't come loose again, because I can clearly see where it probably would happen again, and I certainly don't want to have to take this apart all the time. That's not good for it. So anyways, we're back to working. There's a little thin clouds on the sun, but we're looking beautiful today. There were no clouds this morning. It was really, really sharp. So I called and spoke to Faye, told her what was going on. I had sent an email prior to that with some pictures showing what the issue was. And so then I followed up with the phone call and asked if I could just get that ring. She recommended, well, send the scope in. We like to make sure everything's adjusted and everything. And I said, well, there's really no need to, as the ring, I'm not taking anything apart, no optics. It's just that ring comes apart. It's very simple. And so she said, well, she checked and they would send me just that ring back here that stud screws into, that the thumb reel rides on. And then I would just do the repair myself because it really is very simple. Now, I did ask for just the ring, and I anticipated getting it without the stud because I was going to do something different, because I didn't, even though this may be an anomaly and never happen again, I was going to do something a little bit different. I figured just send me the ring with the tapped hole, nothing else. I didn't need anything else. So I was quite surprised when I got my tracking that it showed £1 pound, and I thought, well, how can that be? But when I received it, I got this big box right here. I thought, wow, they really got that small item packed in such a huge box. And then inside that box was this box. That other box had peanuts in it, packaged really well, in a very heavy box, cardboard, not thin. So inside here, pulled off this foam, and also well packed, was the item that I wanted. And this is what they sent. And I thought, oh, what the hell is this? Because this is a lot more than I wanted. Here's that thin ring back here, and then it came as an assembly. as a sub-assembly. So upon receiving this, I called and spoke to Faye, and she said that they come in to Lunt this way, in this assembly, and so she said they just decided to send me the whole thing. So that being the case, I guess what I'm going to end up doing is taking these two small screws out, bolts, and using their assembly now with their wheel and just replacing what was on mine. But I thought it'd be interesting, while I've got this, to see a close-up of how this is constructed. So I'm not going to be taking anything apart on the front side here, but this is where you can see the threads here, where the white housing would screw on here, and I'm assuming the lens elements will fit inside here. Not sure what the holes are for, but very nice, well machined, nice and smooth. And then the black is painted very smooth inside, very nice. And here's a close-up of what would be the lens elements, I'm assuming, fitting inside here. Then here's your female threads. So this would screw onto the tube assembly like this. This would be your tube. This direction here to the left is going towards the eyepiece. This is your front Italian assembly. Goes there. Alright, so let's take this back apart. Using my 1.5mm Allen wrench. Backing those out. Next, the hinge assembly. Again, keeping very carefully with those small ones and putting them into a container so you don't lose them. Okay, with that set aside, now we're going to take that ring off. Let me grab it here and next thing I'm going to do is take this ring off of the sub-assembly that they sent me. Take these two out so that that ring comes out by itself. And those two small socketed cap screws that I took off from here, I'll put back into the original ring. Next we need to take out those two spring-loaded screws, and that will fully remove this from this front assembly. Once separated, this now is what I'm going to be using to replace the original. Now that thumb wheel ring on the left is the original. The one on the right is the one they sent me. Now I want to take a look here. I was told by Faye that this is some kind of a glue they use. So in this original one, something must have broken free and allowed that stud to back out. Here's the new one. You can see this is fully covered to the front here. And here, when I look in there, it's not all the way out to the front. It's back in a little bit further. that glue. And this is the new piece. Next step is to take everything and put it back together. Let's do this. So here you can see, holding it in the same orientation, you can see how this might go together here with the lens elements in the front to the assembly that they sent me. Alright, so what I did is I put the 2 screws on the top here of that hinge, left them just a little loose because I want to get these 2 started. Okay, this is completed. We're going to make sure we don't have any dust. Then I'm going to do the same to this off camera. And we'll screw it back on. And that's how simple this job is. Faye originally said, well, most people wouldn't want to do this. I said, well, what do you mean? She said, well, I'm probably different than most, because she said most people would have it sent back in. But as you can see, guys, there's nothing to this here. Then we'll just take this and gently give it a little bit of a snug. And we're on here. Now you can see the orientation is different here. Before, before this threaded where this wasn't so close down here. As you recall, it was back a little bit. So it's gone this way just a little further. No big deal. I can still get in there to adjust it. So actually, when I said that, this is further down this way, but this piece, the original, was up just a little bit more. So in other words, this thumb wheel was up a little higher this way. No big deal though. We're not done with this old piece, because I'm going to still do what I want to do here and have this as a backup, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. So let's take out this thumb wheel. And then there's that stud. I'll take that stud back out. Now if you're wondering what that stud is, it's an M3 by 0.5 pitch bolt. And as you can see, it's extremely small, 3 millimeters in diameter. Now what I did is I took my small 1.5 millimeter Allen wrench and stuck it through here like this. That is a silicone. They're using silicone as a glue, because you can see it there. See there? See how it goes back and forth? That's a silicone in there. Is what they're using. So let me tell you what I'm going to do with this piece. Now I've got all kinds of taps but I didn't have anything this small, so I bought a 3 millimeter by 0.5 pitch tap, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do here. So using that tap, I'm going to chase that hole and clean it out and get rid of whatever might be on there, that silicone, whatever, and get that cleaned up first. Now I'm going to do this off camera because I'm going to be using kerosene as the lubricant. It's going to be messy, and I'm going to don't want to have to deal with the camera. So I'll be back as soon as it's all done. So that went well. So the way I did it is, since the stuff was predominantly on this side, I chased it through here using kerosene as the lubricant on the tap, and went through to the other side, went through this way, and then pulling off any of that silicone that I got. Then I would run it back out, clean the tap, put some more kerosene on. Did that 3-4 times until when I came out the other side here, there was no silicone to be had. There was nothing on the tap. Then I just, for the hell of it, went through this side one time. And so everything, there's nothing in here now. So then I just brought it in the house, used some Dawn dish soap, which I love that stuff. It cleans excellent. Just soaked this up with some Dawn, put it under some warm water, washed it all out. And now we have the part that I thought I was going to get with just a tapped hole. So again, looking at the scope, this is what this would look like. The old part, the new part. And here's what I was going to do. I bought some 16mm long by 12mm long. I wasn't sure which size I was going to use. The one in here is a 16mm long by 3mm diameter by 0.5 pitch socket head, or set screws. Yeah, just some set screws here. Cup point. And what I was going to do is basically adjust this the way this is, the length, then measure it, pull it back out, and put a little bit of nylon tape on it, the stuff that you use on pipe threads. And then I thought, we'll screw this back on, only having enough nylon tape, maybe one wrap, maybe 1.5, maybe 2, and then turning this on back to the measurement that I would get from here to this base here, stopping at that point, and then hoping that that friction would hold it. Now, if that didn't work, the second thing I was going to do was put some of that same silicone that I mentioned in my second video. The first video I did on the 40 was a box opening. The second one I did was like 55-minute, 56-minute video on a total review of this. But that product that I mentioned there that Lunt uses, I was going to put some of that on there, and then hopefully that would hold. I also had a third way of doing it that would definitely work. It'd be a little hard to show here with it not on the scope, so I'm not going to mention it, but that would definitely hold. Now you're asking, well, why would I want to do this and go to this? My original thought was, if this happened once, it could happen again, and I wanted a way to do this where I would not have to take this apart, not take those little small screws off here on the hinge. I wanted to be able to do everything from the outside without taking anything apart. So now what I've got here is an extra part. I'll take it, I'll make sure this thing is dry first, totally dry. Then I'll put this back together on here and keep that assembly. Well, actually I can show you well, no, I can't really show how I was going to do it. But you can see what I'm talking about here. That's what it would have been like. In your thumb wheel in here, this would have been to the outside. So, or I'm sorry, the other way. Yeah, it would have been this way. Yeah, this way. And then here you can put the Allen wrench in here to turn it. So anyways, that's what we got. Got this back working. I've got an extra piece here, so should something ever happen, I can go to plan B.